Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for participating on in this panel, and welcome to our NFT and Metaverse panel. On behalf of MaGESpire, I'd like to thank you all the speakers and also our participants for joining this event. My name is Esme. I'm a senior investment analyst looking at technology and also the disruptive evolving forces such as Metaverse and digital assets. I'll be your moderator for today. And with us today, first of all, I'd like to introduce Peter Brewin, PwC partner, and also member of the Crypto Services. Peter, may I please ask you to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, very pleased to meet everybody, and really good to be here. This is a topic that I think is absolutely fascinating, and certainly as an organization, we're really excited about this space as well. I guess I've kind of been involved in the space, or kind of got introduced to the metaverse through working in crypto, and really that sort of goes back to kind of when PwC first started getting involved in the space in sort of 2017, when everybody was talking about token sales and ICOs. I think many people got involved in that time, and that sort of really then evolved into into where we all thought that this business was going into financial services and getting crypto trading. But actually in the last sort of year, NFTs have really kind of snuck up on us, and and with the Meta announcement, or Facebook or Meta as they now are, really kind of everything blew up, and it feels like now taking that knowledge and expertise we've gained from working on digital assets into NFTs, and then and really sort of the phone has been ringing off the hook now with companies looking to explore what they need to think about when they come in to do projects around NFTs, or exploring what they can do in the metaverse. And hopefully we can kind of share some of the lessons we've learned from that. And see, actually we've got Suresh and Sebastien just joined as well, so I will.
Right, thanks very much, Peter. And we'll be excited to hear about something more that Peter will be able to share during the course of our hour together. And next, welcome Suresh. I'm Esme, I'm the moderator, and I'll be delighted to invite you to introduce yourself to our audience, and also your journey into crypto and the metaverse.
Sure. Hey, sorry, I was a bit late. I'm in Hong Kong International Airport. My PCR test got delayed. So we are just trying to, we're trying to enter the metaverse. Most people are trying to enter the metaverse. I'm trying to exit an airport. So I can't but enjoy the irony of it. But hey, my journey started in the lockdown, right? It was sort of, I talk of my journey into Web3 as a lockdown love child between myself and my laptop, right? So no travel, no nothing, staying awake, browsing through stuff, and then falling in love with blockchain technology and everything that brings has been nothing but fascinating. At this point in time, I sort of wear multiple hats. I'm the CMO for HSBC in Asia, and I've been fortunate enough to interact with Sebastien in our journey into the metaverse. These guys are the cool kids on the block, right? I'm just trying to get some anti-aging cream on myself, and trying to be cool by association. And the second hat that I wear is I was fortunate enough also to start a Web3 marketing association, which is the first marketing association of its kind, solely dedicated to Web3. I think getting the collective power of marketers to have an influence over how we can help develop Web3, right? I think Web3 is not here yet. We are it's not fully distributed yet. It's still early days. There's a massive opportunity for us to all lean in and create this in many ways. So that's my journey. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Right, thanks very much, Suresh. And we'll touch on some of the core points that you talked about. And welcome, Sebastien. So ladies first, may I invite Bowie to please introduce yourself and also your intersections with the Metaverse, NFTs, Animoca, and Sandbox.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for everybody for joining this event that I organized today. I'm Bowie, based out of Hong Kong. I wear a few hats. One of them is called MaGEspire. It's a company I run. It's an angel investment group based out of Hong Kong and Singapore. I do direct investment to different startups. I'm also a partner of a VC fund called True Global Ventures, which is a Web3 focused late stage fund. We are early backers of Sandbox, very, very proud and happy for the latest development, as well as their parents company, Animoca Brands. On the other hand, I also run another company called MaGESpire, which is a tech venture development and education group. I often organize a lot of educational talks, events, and conferences focusing on emerging technologies. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Bowie. And last but not least, we also have Sebastien. So Sebastien, will you be able to highlight some of the key achievements? I think we will potentially overrun if you have to go through your list. So if you could just highlight 2 or 3 points, especially those that cut into what Bowie, Suresh, and also Peter are engaged in, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and great to feel like with like-minded people, almost family, all landowners or partners of Sandbox. What we have achieved so far over the past 4 years is very little, and at the same time it's already a lot. So we're really proud of like our community and how we're been positioning the Sandbox towards building this open metaverse. We have a fantastic community of more than 20,000 unique landowners, more than 200 large brands and partners from various sectors of the industry, of course, entertainment, lifestyle, fashion, gaming, but also retail, banking, shopping. So we have PricewaterhouseCoopers or HSBC as well, who are proud landowners and will be developing experiences in it. We already successfully launched 2 alpha seasons to demonstrate play to earn on our platform, which is still not yet fully open to the public. Had more than 350,000 active users last month and over 2.5 million registered users with a wallet already.
Right, perfect. Right, so very briefly about myself. So I'm a ranked investment analyst in the sell side. I look at disruptive and evolving technologies, and I would like to strive to be the go-to analyst in terms of digital assets. So thanks very much. And first of all, I'd like to kick off this session by outlining the structure. So we've already gone through the introductions. So next session, I will also introduce Sebastien on behalf of Sandbox to give a presentation about what the latest offering is. And then afterwards, we move to the panel discussion session, in which we will have some curated questions. Following that, we'll move on to the Q&A, in which we welcome the audience to ask questions. And last but not least, we'll move on to our panelists to share their takeaways for our audience to put in their back pockets. So next, I would like to pass the time to Sebastien to go through some of the highlights that we should all turn to.
Yeah, Sebastien, you have a deck where you can give a brief introduction of Sandbox.
Yes.
And share screen, please.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So how much time do I have roughly to present Sandbox?
At your 5 to 10 minutes will be great, but I think the audience will be very interested in hearing about what you're able to share in terms of dialogue and interaction with the panel. So anything that's comfortable and convenient for yourself.
Okay. All right, so let's go through the presentation in 5-10 minutes. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to present the Sandbox. I'd like to share a little, I hope everyone can see my slides now. I'd like to share a little bit more like how we're building the open NFT metaverse and the future of gaming. I'll start by showing you a video taken from the last
enlarge the video.
Too.
Yeah, the screen is a bit small.
Might not be sharing the right screen then. Are you here? Is it showing the tiny portion or the large full screen?
Not large full screen.
All right. So let's do that like this.
And you have music?
So what we are showing here is an overview of like the previous alpha season that launched in March. There was over 35 experience that players could engage with. We had more than 350,000 active users, more than 200 quests to complete. They played through a single player game, social hubs, adventure game made by the communities themselves, as well as some of the projects supported creators, studios supported by our foundation. They also experienced 3 major IPs, including Snoop Dogg and visiting the Snoop Dogg mansion, listening to exclusive song made by a DJ called Blondish into our club XYZ, earn rewards, interacted with external NFTs, including being able to play with avatars not made in Sandbox, demonstrating interoperability in the metaverse, and other cool events and activities such as playing with their Snoop avatar or exploring virtual Hong Kong as well. So let's go into a nutshell about what is a sandbox. To us, the metaverse is essentially this myriad of virtual world that users will be able to access through an avatar with 3D representation of themselves. And that avatar allows to engage and interact with more immersive, social, rich, fun user experience. Most of those experiences will actually be built by other creators. Could be you, could be me, could be any brand in the world. And so to enable that and enable anyone to become a creator, we are providing the tools that enables anyone to make 3D assets or even animated or content without.
Is that me or Esme, are you able to hear Sebastien?
No, I'm not able to.
Oh, okay. Some audio.
That's such as.
We just lost you for 5 seconds, Sebastien. Please continue.
So we also brought like brands like The Walking Dead, Ubisoft, Snoop Dogg, Warner Music, etc., which bring culture, enabling. It might be like the first place of interaction for many of users who enter this new world for the first time, but also they can use official NFTs content, digital content from those brands, and use them to mix, remix, etc., to make their own creation. We also expect users to experience new form of entertainment where they own their digital asset, their own identities. They can build alone or together. They can play alone or together. They can socialize. They can interact. They can dance, and they can also earn and be rewarded for their time and contribution, using blockchain technology to establish like the transparency, the fairness, the proof of the ownership, and leading, once you understand NFTs are asset of value, leading to services, jobs, a whole new digital economy, governance, and even decentralization of that world, a new nation. To enable this, like we enable users to truly own their digital assets, starting with avatars that represent their identity, their assets, which are game items, and their land, which represent portion of the metaverse, which anyone can own and use to build and give access to other users to the content they create. And we have that map, which makes also Sandbox unique as a virtual world, a map that contains exactly 166, 164 lands, not a single more. And we've sold about 70% to date of those lands, each one being an NFT. And we reinforce the notion of ownership of those lands through enabling putting your own logo. And that has led people to become the virtual neighbors of other creators, of other brands, and to create this system where you're part of community, you're part of a neighborhood, and the content you develop will be also helping others. So becoming the neighbor of like a sport brand, a celebrity is also valuable for you and for the celebrity and the brand itself. We have been working to create the metaverse as this next place for like the new place for social interaction, for digital expression, and leveraging brands and their fans to do so, focusing more specifically into gaming, fashion, Web3, lifestyle, of course, and having very a global footprint with brands that are both from like the West and the East, so that anyone anywhere in the world could feel like there is something interesting for them to do into the metaverse. And that's include not only existing brands, but also communities born in Web3. So we're adding value to those communities, providing them a place where the holder of the NFTs from those communities can actually socialize, play, interact with each other, create their own world, create their own stories, their own adventures, and even play with the avatars through the interoperability bridge. And that is leading to like what we believe will be the future of gaming is essentially a place or platform where anyone can actually build content, can create assets, can collect those, can own their identity through their avatar and all their digital assets, and even participate into the governance, becoming a real stakeholder onto those projects, and be rewarded for their engagement either as a user or the creator. Spending time, bringing content, bringing and growing the network is important. And the metaverse is really going and should be driven more and more by creativity and imagination. That's why we built a series of tools that anyone can access. Think of Voxel like digital Legos. You do not need to read a user manual to start creating. That will enlarge the audience of people accessing the opportunity. No matter where you are in the world, you should be able to use those tools. And we have great, fantastic user stories from young kids to like adults entering the space, quitting their job and now becoming builders and part of this ecosystem. Also, like we like to push the idea like anyone can be whoever they want, starting to create their avatar and choosing their identity. That avatar that's a representation of themselves can be human, man, woman, or any other form of life. It should be representing a diversity and inclusivity. It could even be using NFT collection, like anyone can become a Snoop Dogg or even Snoop Dogg in Gucci, which is like a very one NFT. So only one person in the world. Your identity is unique as an NFT. And an avatar can and should come not just from Sandbox, but from anywhere. So you could actually turn any profile picture NFT into an avatar through the Interoperability bridge and be able to play with it, such as those World of Women, for example, that is the first interoperable collection we brought in the metaverse. And we want you to unleash your imagination, thinking like really like any activity from the real world should be expanded into the metaverse. Of course, social hubs, NFT galleries, nightclubs, even having your house, hosting your friends, parties, birthday, exploring, playing, attending a fashion show, or any kind of game that you can already see should be there. But really looking into like also all the possible thematics, which include real estate, music, concert and streaming, fashion, shopping, social and dating, sport, video game, work, art, museum, etc. It's all about creating new opportunities, new jobs that will appeal to millions of people in the metaverse with skills that you do not typically learn at school, but only by being involved and spending time as your avatar, whether they touch to creation with architects, fashion designers, game designers, interior designer, discovery of content like exploring, curating, guiding other users, welcoming other users in land and making each experience unique. Also to business like selling NFT, reselling virtual land, events, community, event organizing, coaching, etc. And of course now playing. And this opportunity can only be can only grow if we're able to show that anyone can actually be successful at their own scale in the metaverse. That's why we've been very keen on supporting and growing an ecosystem globally with teams in Hong Kong, in Korea, in Vietnam, in France, in UK, in US, and more people who are building experiences for the landowners, for the brands, for themselves, and bringing their ideas to life. Moving on a bit faster, I'll just highlight some key takeaways. Like if you consider entering the metaverse, think of it as like a channel of communication and engagement for your fan and loyal users, where rather than trying to extract value and monetize an audience, you actually first want to engage and give them more value. You want to reward those users for their contribution in the form of UGC and play to earn. You want to embrace the NFT culture, so like not just ignoring the existing communities, but integrating with those communities, the Bored Ape, CryptoPunk, and other. And you want to encourage user-generated content, letting your users like imagination go wild and create and expand your universe online. So really put creativity first and rewards people who are like contributing. And that's it. I tried to be as short as possible, but I'm sure we can talk more after. And if you want to get started, I invite you to create your avatar and join our community.
Thanks, Sebastien, for the excellent presentation. And I think that's a great start to setting the stage for our for the next 20 minutes of our time, in which we'll be discussing some high-level trends, and especially how that is going to cut into specific pockets of industries such as finance and also consulting, in which we have stakeholders currently on the panel. So today we have a very well-rounded panel. Of course, with Sebastien and also Sandbox, who, everybody of us has intersections with. And then we have Bowie, who would be a capital allocator in the VC space, in the deploying capital into NFTs and also Metaverse trends. And we also have Suresh, who will be a representative of HSBC and also in terms of financial services. And last but not least, so we also have Peter representing PwC and also crypto consulting services for many MNCs and also large players. So I'm going to kickstart with some high-level trends, which we're going to tease into before we touch into specific pockets. So first of all, in our introductions, we really touched on to how we got to where we are and also the accelerating opportunities that abound. So the next question will be where we are headed. And with that, I'd like to turn to Sebastien first in terms of the future trends as a creator of a Metaverse and also a manager. And then next, we're going to move to Suresh and Peter to discuss the opportunities in financial services. So over to you, Sebastien, on the future of Metaverse.
Well, I think like we're definitely very early days on like how we're approaching and building the open metaverse, but we are very attached to already make something tangible that people can interact with their avatars. So the future is really imagine like one or multiple virtual world where like you can spend a growing amount of time with your avatar into engaging across all those different activities I've described and being rewarded for the contribution. So you can really move from one land to another land and like from playing to socializing to working to attending a virtual concert to dancing with others, etc. So you just one walk away from a great variety of experiences that are made by brands, made by builders, made by user-generated content, and will not always the intent of like being transactional or just being commercial success. So like having access to a greater diversity, a greater form of content that also put creativity first will be important. You should be able to express yourself a lot through avatars, even voxel-based avatar, which now looks a very simplified form of yourself, but yet it's a very accepted one. Like in gaming, people have been using avatars for 25 years. We all can identify ourselves and create those characters really easily. And I definitely see a way like as an avatar entering a world where I have so much choice of like how my time can be valuable, like whether I learn new skills, whether I create content, whether I have fun just with friends. My presence is valued and contributing into this world.
Right. That's great. And I think Sebastien really focused on the community aspect and also the creativity and also on the unknown unknowns, which will be a focus on where the future of Metaverse is headed. And next, I'd like to pick the brains of Suresh. So Suresh, in terms of, so you and Peter has definitely stole the headlines of a lot of financial and also mainstream press in the activities that you're embarking upon in the Metaverse. So just want to pick your brains as to what do you think the future holds for HSBC in the Metaverse? And also what are you pivoting into and also strategizing in this space?
Hey, thanks for asking me here, right? I think the 3 points actually. The first one is the big difference between the previous immersive experiences like Second Life and what's happening with Sandbox is digital identity. It is ownership, right? So that's what excites us. That's the first thing that excites us, which is HSBC, 157 years in Hong Kong and Shanghai and everywhere else. It's always been about the communities. So if this is where the communities are going to be, this is where we would like to be, right? That's number one. The second one that really excites us is when we spoke to Sebastien and as well as Evan and everyone else in the early days, it was quite evident that they were not just about helping grow their own business, but it was about building their own ecosystem. It was about trying to get the entire tide to rise so that all boats would rise, right? So if you are following Animoca brands or Sandbox on LinkedIn, you will see that they're investing in small gamers, big gamers. They're trying to drive a bigger conversation across the entire ecosystem, and that's what we loved about them. And I think that the whole idea of us participating with them to help the future communities try and understand and have better literacy of what they're doing in the metaverse is also quite pretty cool, right? So that's where we get excited, right? Sorry about the noise.
Right, great. And let's just move to Peter to discuss what PwC is moving into with regards to the Metaverse and also what is being planned, because we're all interested as to looking into the future.
Great. Thank you very much, Esme. So I guess for those of you just thinking about sort of PwC and our business, right? And we feel that we've got a really important role to play in the development of the Metaverse. Particularly when it comes to building trust and solving some of those really important problems that are going to come through the implementation of any new technology and how it relates to kind of business processes. So, I mean, our client base consists of large numbers of companies that have, in the most part, never dealt with digital assets, NFTs, or kind of these new kind of concepts of gaming or going into the metaverse before. And there's just so many challenges, and many of these companies have got a long way to go before they're able to kind of fully operate in Web3 in a fluent way. And so I'll give you kind of an example of this, right? So if you're a listed company, you can't just go and set up a crypto wallet and go and play. It just doesn't work like that. You've got to you've got to basically do like vendor assessments on custodians. You've got to look at wallet solutions. You got to develop your risk and control frameworks, ensure you've got business continuity plans in place. There's got a strategy for dealing with your anti-money laundering, financial crime prevention when you involve crypto assets. Is your cyber security up to the task? What do you do with customer data and privacy? And then all the other stuff around accounting, taxation, and all this. What does your auditor want to understand about when you've done into this, right? So, I mean, it's all of this stuff is some people may say it's boring, but it's super important in terms of how a large companies, listed companies, going to move into this space. So the experience that we're building, and we think there's a large amount of education needed in the sector to bring the corporate world up to speed with some of these issues, some of these trends. And so the experience we're really building is about raising awareness of these issues with the aim of ensuring that those building the metaverse do so in ways such that the system can be trusted, that things are done properly, that the different stakeholders, whether it be regulators, tax authorities, users, customers, NFT owners, and shareholders of the companies that are looking to be IP owners are kind of comfortable in the way that things are being done. And so in terms of what are we going to be doing, I mean, I think in terms of, I'd say still watch this space now in terms of the exact details of PwC's experience, but it really is going to be around education of some of these issues and really showing what we can provide to kind of help contribute to the ecosystem in that way.
Right, sure. Thanks, Peter. That's a very holistic view. And just to stay with you, Peter, can you share some of the key conversations that your clients have been asking you, and also how are you addressing them?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that one of the most common conversations we've been having with clients over the last month is we get these frantic phone calls from somebody who say, hey, Hong Kong companies, oh, my boss wants to issue an NFT, or my boss wants to buy land in the metaverse. How do I do it? What do I do, right? And and I think really the sort of what we are very much trying to do here is to say, okay, well, when you do these things, a lot of it's starting off about education. Right? First of all, what are you trying to achieve? Because usually the objective is not actually to buy virtual land, or the objective is not to issue an NFT. Often the objective is, if you're a brand, you want to engage with your customers in a new way. You want to create different experiences or attract yourself to new customer groups. And really kind of NFTs or exploring kind of what to do in the metaverse is really just a means of trying to do that. And so often it's sort of saying, okay, don't do an NFT as like a cash grab. Don't rush into it. Think about what really this can do to help you with your engaging with your customers. And really then also think about, as I said, all the things I spoke about before, but there is a lot of stuff you're going to have to think about. And I say quite often it's the, someone like the chief marketing officer, sorry, Suresh, to kind of call on you, but says, oh, we got to do this because it's going to be super important for the market. And then, the legal team, the compliance team, everybody else is like, well, hold on, we're not ready for this. And, we want to make sure that actually companies can move forward in this in a way that ensures that actually things get done and they get done properly.
Right, sure.
Yeah,
and what do you?
I just want to build on that.
Go ahead,
I think that at the core of Peter's point is what I call information asymmetry, right? When there is a growth of any new technology, when there's advent of any new technology, there's always information asymmetry. There's a small group of people who know a lot about it, and a big group of people who don't know anything about it. And the big group of people, there's organ rejection everywhere. So both at work, I'm fortunate to be at HSBC, where there's quite a bit of focus in the recent years on driving digital transformation, innovation, etc. To try and tell that story of we are ready to go into the new world has been a welcome conversation internally. Right, I think that to solve information asymmetry across the board, across the ecosystem is the first thing that we need to think about, right? The second thing we need to think about is, we got to think about what will last beyond the hype. I love Peter's point about people phone him and say, hey, can we do an NFT, please, because my chairman said so, right? I think the question is, if we're not being purposeful about it, I think we are lost. Is Web3 going to take over Web2, Web1, Web0? I don't think so, right? I think all of that will coexist. Right, our the little Cha-Chanteng is not going to go away, right? He's not going to go on chain. I think the question is, how do we create a brand to be purposeful about our business, to be purposeful about our communities? How do we respond to that, and how do we add everything that's coming through Web3 and blockchain to solve for issues that were never solved before, and create a new facet of customer interaction, new facet of developing new economics? All of that is probably where we need to lean into. The red thread that needs to run across, Web 0, 1, 2, 3 is your authentic business, right? It is your authentic brand. You leave that aside, I think everything is dead, right? I mean, it happened to me way back when people used to say, hey, how should HSBC turn up in social media? I would say, hey, just turn up as ourselves, right? You don't have to turn up as anyone else. So that's the opportunity here to say, be authentic, to try and create that and be purposeful, right?
Right. I would say that, yeah, the focus is really about, as you rightly said, ownership, and also in terms of authenticity and sustainability as well. And speaking of sustainability, so Bowie as a VC, she's been deploying capital into the frontiers of technology, and that including Sandbox, obviously. So I'd like to understand more as to what sort of projects are you currently looking at, and how that cuts into the frontiers of Metaverse and Web3, since that's been touched into by Suresh.
Sure. I'm not just looking at blockchain. I think from MaGEspire, which is the angel investment group, there are 5 specific technologies that we are interested and also focus on, including AI, big data, blockchain, cybersecurity, and Internet of Things. We're looking for, I think, projects that can really solve the real problem instead of just, for the sake of having nowadays with all these so-called Web3 NFT Metaverse projects, just to want to catch the wave. Certainly, there are lots of bad apples out there. Just try to scam people's money, whether it's through the token or through or NFT format, whatever it might be. So watch out. I saw one of the question from the chat, and I see what Suresh already replied. I think the most important thing for anyone to do is to really invest into yourself, to get yourself educated what's happening in this space. And that applies to everybody. I think I'm learning every day as well. I learned through lots of different new projects that approach me. At the end of the day, for True Global Ventures, if I speak from the VC point of view, we look for good project that has also synergies with our existing portfolio company, because at the end we want to bring value and let them grow together. So, but first you got to invest yourself.
Yep, agree 100%. It's about education and empowerment. So Sebastien, if we may come back to you, and also a question in the chat, it's about the interoperability of the metaverse. So given that there is centralized and decentralized metaverses, how do you see the future of interoperability? For example, if I have an avatar in Sandbox, am I able to bring it over to other decentralized metaverses?
Yes, the technology allows for it. Any NFT, any asset in Sandbox has first utility with Sandbox Game Maker, so you can create your own experience with it. But also, because it is an NFT and because it is only in the user wallet, it could be used and represented on any other decentralized application, meaning that NFT could be, for example, like membership token, in a way that give you access to other experiences, that give you access to other worlds, lands, application. Imagine there is a virtual Paris on the blockchain, and you need to be a holder of that Eiffel Tower to enter it. It could become into another game, a different representation. That's also a possibility offered by the blockchain. Here, users have on their wallet proof that they are the owner of the asset. And so when they connect to other decentralized application with that same wallet, those applications can detect the list of content they have and eventually build functionality, build feature and support for them, which could be a great way to rethink like user acquisition and how the same asset could revert multiple utility, could actually have and acquire more value through the increased number of utilities that they have.
Right, and let's just stay with you. So the next question would be with respect to multi-chain metaverses. You can also cite some of the examples that you gleaned from in terms of the Alpha Season 2 launch. So what are the experience that you have in multi-chain metaverses, and what are you going to take away from that and put into your next phase of development?
Every time, you mean the pass from each season? So the pass that you earn as you engage into each season, they keep, if you keep them, they still deliver value over time, like proving that you've been there a longer amount of time, holding the different paths, increase your chances to actually win more season after season as well. So we are definitely rewarding loyalty. We can also reward with, for example, airdrop or access to exclusive experience, owner of those paths. So you can decide to sell it at any time. Holding to it is also something that can be rewarded. At least that's what we chose to do at Sandbox. Seasons are just an overview of the possibilities. us becoming the first party building the content by ourselves for some of the top tier brands. We'll keep doing seasons, probably a few more this year, until like we provide the tools. So anyone, any brand, it could be HSBC, it could be PwC, it could be Adidas, Gucci, etc., will run their own seasons directly on their land and have access to all those engagement, comeback design, gating tools, rewards tools to create experiences for them and their community.
Right, very thrilled to hear about that. And in terms of more some of the concrete examples that PwC and HSBC have been developing in the land that they acquire in the metaverse, Peter, will you be able to give us more color as to how you're using the land and how you're deploying that?
Yeah, I think I sort of already said. I think from our point of view, we're using it as a means of education. And a way of kind of connecting and, I guess solving that information asymmetry that Suresh mentioned, right? We see, the metaverse is a hugely important tool for kind of for educational experiences. And, the way we see it is that we can use that to educate people about some of the issues that may not be necessarily obvious to people that are new in the space. And of course, we can then also highlight how a firm like ours may be able to also help them, right? And hopefully then it leads to generating business for us by being able to kind of be present there and to be a point of call where people do need more help. Then there's consulting services and advisory services that we can help with. And really the metaverse experiences around engaging that and being part of that use case. I think the other area which we find immensely interesting is around talent. And every consulting firm out there, every firm actually at the moment in the current kind of given the great resignation post-COVID is desperate for talent. And we see this as a way that we can also explore and communicate what we're about as a firm to the next generation. And hopefully it inspires them, and hopefully they want to be part of that and see a career with us as being something of interest. So there's many reasons why we want to do this, and this is kind of I think the specifics of what exactly it's going to look like, we're working on it, right? We're building it. It will be announced shortly when we're ready to when we've got something to announce. But I think conceptually, hopefully that's explained what we're trying to achieve with this and where we're going with it.
Right. That's a great outlook. And also everybody in the audience, let's stay tuned as to what Peter and PwC is doing in terms of their future announcement. And next, with regards to Suresh, so just to connect the dots here, HSBC has been coming up with a lot of innovations and also offerings for clients in the metaverse. So for private wealth clients, you have your metaverse fund. And then you also enter the Sandbox, you're invested in Consensus. So just to tie it together for everybody in the audience, how should we think about it in terms of your corporate strategy and also your engagement in the broader Web3 space?
So I'll break it down into three parts, right? The first thing is the breadth of things that HSBC is doing is part of a concerted strategy around what we call digitize at scale. So it's digitizing our offering for our customers, and that journey started many years ago, right? So that's something that we are progressing on. We've invested billions of dollars in digitizing. Part of that is utilizing blockchain technologies across the board. That's the first one. The second one is what has been really interesting is so I set up an internal Web3 community a while ago. It's amazing how many interested parties that are happy to lean in by the side of their desks. I'm sure it started like that for Bowie and Sebastien and Peter as well, right? You start off as, let me spend a couple of hours a week on this, and it's become a predominant preoccupation for many of us on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think I'm full-time now.
Right, so it's fascinating that corralling that internal community. Exactly, right? You start off and you just start going down the rabbit hole, and then you find more people who want to go down the rabbit hole with you. And then we have a really vibrant internal community now, and that community does lots of amazing POCs. the things that they have been able to achieve internally, I mean, it just goes volumes, right? It's just the collective what they can do once they have set their mind around the purpose. So there is quite a few other announcements to come as well. So we are working through it. And the third piece is my own view on what we will do in the sandbox is what I definitely do not want to do. Of course, there are lots of ideas of what we want to do. I do not want to build a banking branch because nobody wants to go to even a real banking branch. Why the hell will they go to a banking branch in the metaverse, right? So I think we need to create. So as a CMO, I call it, the medium is the message, right? Sometimes you got to be medium appropriate. You got to be appropriate for sandbox audiences. You got to be appropriate for future sandbox audiences. We want the ecosystem to grow. If we went there and built another branch, I think it'll be boring, right? So what we're thinking of is deep brand experiences. How do we connect with our sports properties? How do we connect with sustainability? How do we connect with our history? All of those is what we are toying with right now. Some really cool things being planned with people in the sandbox ecosystem, and you will have to wait and watch. But definitely, you are not going to come and meet a teller over there, right?
Right, that's great. And it's all about creating a grand brand experience, and that's what the metaverse would, be able to turn the tables in. And also a question from the audience, and that's open to everybody in the panel. So how do we solve the information asymmetry across borders and language barriers? Since that will be an issue in real life and also in virtually.
I can have a go at that. I mean, I think the key is, I think this comes down to you just have to ask questions and reach out to people, right? I think everything that Suresh is saying around the way the community works, I 100% agree with. I've never been part of a community that is so open to sharing what they're doing and to helping each other out. So I think all of us started somewhere. A lot of us have worked this out for ourselves by just being part of this community and by thinking through how we can apply our own kind of business expertise to these particular problems. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't know about everyone else here, but this is new to all of us, right? We're learning as we go. And I think the key is just get in there, roll up your sleeves, and get involved. And all of a sudden you realize that you know more than everybody else does.
Yeah, it's all about rolling out our sleeves and getting our hands dirty
and turning up to Bowie's presentations.
Yep, definitely. And next question to Sebastien. So given that you have a bird's eye view as to what everybody is doing in the metaverse, given that there's so many landowners, so what would you suggest for a digital financial institutions to start to be a bridge to the NFT or metaverse communities? And this will be think out of the box response.
Yes, well, it's exactly that. Like, think out of the box. Like, try to reinvent yourself. Take this opportunity with technology, with audience that is now like really eager to connect and spend time with your brand. So they choose to do so. And so they're think of like what are the reasons like people would actually choose to spend time with your brand rather than another, and what do you offer them as value in return? That value can be financial, but could also be in other different forms. That could be in form of experience, could be in form of digital content, could be in form of like meaning, time spent with them, etc. So that's the first thing I would like to explore. The second is like definitely, like I mentioned in my presentation, like embrace user-generated content. So open the gates. Stop to define yourself like who your brand is, but involve the people who are supporting your brand into this this definition, and ultimately try to build something that creates aspiration for the future, like reward creativity, reward imagination, rewards like inclusivity and diversity.
Right. Yeah. So it's all about the originality and also embracing user-generated content. And then Bowie, so you've done a home run when it comes to investing in the sandbox. So what were the initial reasons that underpinned your idea to invest in this very successful project?
Sure. I think it's the reason why I joined True Global Ventures as a partner, because it's a very unique decentralized fund. There are more than 40 partners globally across 20 cities. So all the major cities, you will find one of or a few of us for sure from this VC fund. And Yat Seal, who is the chairman of Animoca Brands, which is the parent company of the Sandbox, is also our partner. And through him, we got to know Sandbox, and we trust our partners a lot because we believe each partner will have a very strong network in their own jurisdiction, with, especially in the city where they stay. And we got to know Sandbox since I think 2019, so 3 years ago. And Sandbox is a very unique project back then. I think there are three special areas where one is the ownership, because they really can provide more control to the users and increases opportunities for users to monetize their network. Second is the governance. They also offer decentralized system where large tech platform cannot really change policy for users centrally. And last but not least is the incentive alignment. They build the trust in how users transact and interact with each other. And as a result, it's really helping more consumers online. So those three, I guess, key unique features of Sandbox was really the main reason why we went and entered the round 3 years ago.
Right. Congratulations. Well done. And that's also the reason why we're having this really interesting panel discussion today. So we're almost close to our hour together, but finally, I would like to invite all of our panelists to discuss the takeaways that our audience should stick in their back pocket. And in your response, will you be able to also layer in what do you expect as the future use cases in the metaverse? So let's start with Bowie. And then we'll move around the virtual table to Suresh, Peter, and finish with Sebastien.
Sure. So the metaverse will likely take hold as an important part of our lives that might become indispensable, like social media handles, like unique avatars, ENS Web 3.0 names, and public addresses might become the fashion. And with COVID making the in-person communication difficult and physical presence difficult, our virtual experiences like virtual concert, virtual conference, virtual cafe, and build meaningful emotional bonds over virtual experiences. It was the next level where people will unlock their minds. So back in the old days where we really did not know what is the internet, nowadays we're using it in our daily life. Whatever app that we use, it actually tied with the internet, so without our knowledge. So I think that's the trend. One key takeaway is never stop investing in yourself. I think this is important because the world is changing rapidly. You got to, if you want to stay on top of the game, you got to keep getting yourself educated.
Right, great. Let's move on to Peter, and then.
So I'm going to pick an example which I think is really, really important to me, and I think it's really around how are we going to manage our data going forward, and I think it's going to become increasingly important, and I think taking control of that is going to be absolutely critical for a lot of Web3 to really work, right? And I think it all hinges on building up good, credible solutions for digital sovereign identity. I think sort of basically how individuals store their own information, how they manage it themselves, and how they make it available to businesses that then want to use it, right? But the key is that individuals control their own data. They don't hand it over for other people to monetize. So when there is an opportunity to monetize data, the individual respects or expects they also have the chance to share in that monetization. And I think I think in my view, this has got the potential to make absolutely massive changes to people's lives in maybe even like small cases, but also in quite big situations. Everything from just like everyday tasks to like, how do you manage your medical records? How do you take out a loan? How do you interact on social media or apply for a visa to go and travel? I mean, these are all situations where you're giving away data to people, and like you should only have to do it once. You should keep control over it. And I think that the key thing is like getting all these systems to talk to each other, to have a common platform that is accepted, that people trust, to actually have the correct data on it, and that is interoperable with all these different use cases, I think is the challenge. But if we can do it, it's going to make a massive difference.
Right, definitely. And then on to Suresh.
Yeah, so here's what my hope is, right? My hope is that, I truly believe that, we are not all going to be walking around with VR headsets in the street and bumping into each other, right? Web3 is going to become a facet of our lives. We all live real lives. So Naval Ravikant is probably, the Bowie of United States, right? So he's an angel investor, he's a general partner and AngelList. And he says that, when you see a bear, it's interesting. When you see a cycle, it's interesting. When you put a bear on a unicycle, then it gets even more interesting, right? I think the intersection of real world and the intersection of the metaverse is where I think the magic is going to happen, right? So there are DAOs coming up which are trying to buy golf courses. There are DAOs coming up which are trying to build new breweries. Somebody is thinking of a fitness metaverse, and we are talking to them in the Sandbox. They want to convert steps into tokens, and the tokens can be used in the metaverse to unlock value and backwards and forwards. So folks, we got to think about this as how does Web3 play a role in our lives, and not take our lives into Web3, right? So those are the use cases that will eventually be interesting and will be able to bring more and more audiences to enjoy the beauty of this technology.
Right, fantastic analogies. And Sebastien, if we will go on to you with regards to the takeaways for our audience.
A lot has been said already, so hard to add much more. I think we have the chance to be living through this new digital disruption that Web3 is representing. And there is essentially a shift of power, a shift of value in Web3, that putting the users at the center of all the experience and at the center of like an internet of value, where each one of us can seize that opportunity to actually build community, build product, build services, and connect with other communities of ownership that way to in a very different approach from what we've seen in Web 1 or Web 2 before. So we're still at the early days of this transformation. So we don't know yet the ultimate form that it will take as it matures over time. But it's really interesting to see how it's driving a lot of creativity and innovation as people are experimenting with those concepts already. And the fact that the value is being shared among the community, the fact that community becomes stakeholder of the product, services, or even DAOs that they are member of, I've never seen those level of engagement before anywhere else, whether in gaming, in Web 2, etc. And it's really great moving forward to think like there is this opportunity lying ahead of us, and where like as we contribute, we are actually also like building value for ourselves and for everyone.
Right. Thanks, Sebastien, for ending up our panel on a very high note with regards to value sharing and value creation. So on this note, I'd like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this panel on the Metaverse and NFT today. We really do appreciate your interest in this very important topic. And the conversation has been extremely insightful, and I trust that all of us, including myself, has a lot to learn and a lot to take away. So without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Bowie into the next session about crypto investing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esme, for a great moderation. Sebastien, Suresh, and Peter, thank you so much for joining this panel. We keep in touch and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Let me
Bye-bye.
Do a quick share screen. I'd like to bring the next panel. And I'd like to introduce the second panel, which is the future of alternative investments. We have Eddie Lau from CEO of Arta TechFin. We have Nicola Santoni, which is the principal from Lemniscap. And we also had Gillian Brewin, which is a partner from Mulana Capital. So let me stop the share screen now. And I will bring you on stage. Give me one moment, please. Hi, Eddie.
Hello.
And let me bring Gillian. 1 second, I have to search. We have quite a lot of people yet. There you go. And also Nicola. So it's my privilege to moderate this panel with all of you. And I think before we get started, it will be good to have a quick introduction of yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how you got into the digital asset investment space. So why don't we start with Eddie?
I am Eddie Lau. Actually live in Hong Kong. Actually went to the States and then went to China for work as well, mostly in finance, in asset management and proprietary trading with investment bank. And then probably 5 years ago, before I thought I get too old, I should get into the technology space, and have been making enough technology investment in life. So starting to do projects, and then got the opportunity to work for Arta. So Arta TechFin is 75% owned by Dr. Adrian Zhang, and he's also the chairman of the company. So at Arta, we're building a technology-driven financial service. Blockchain application is one of our core philosophy, and also we'll talk about NFT and probably eventually can talk about Metaverse. So, but I'll let everyone talk first.
Thank you, Eddie. Gillian?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm based in Hong Kong as well. Throughout my career, actually, majority of my career has been equity investment within a number of traditional insurer asset management firms. Have been on the sideline looking at crypto from early on, but I always thought this may not be lasting. But after, I think, a number of these cycles, and finally convinced, and joined Huobi Asset Management in 2019, sort of within Hong Kong, set up the team, got the SFC World Asset Management license to manage crypto, passive and active strategies. And throughout that process, again, we've sort of identified a new opportunity, or let's say inefficiency for crypto service provider to get a proper insurance, let's say, solution to cover the platform risk. So I went out and funded a on-chain insurance protocol that has already done a number of round of funding on the testnet, aim to launch mainnet soon. And within this process, again, I've identified more inefficiency in terms of how to navigate through as a funder within the crypto space throughout the entire project lifecycle. And you have a token lifecycle that come into play, which is all crammed together in the same time space. So I thought I want to support more of the funders throughout this journey and grow together. And that's why I founded Mulana Capital.
Thank you. And Nicola?
Hello everyone. Thanks, Bowie, for inviting me. I'm also here in Hong Kong. I've been here for a while now. Basically since I'm full-time in crypto, which is late 2017, I guess. So as a background, traditional finance, used to trade equity derivatives, financial engineering, structured products. I started looking into crypto seriously January 2014. I wanted to build an option exchange for Bitcoin. Options were pretty much the only thing I knew at that time. and I wanted to see how Bitcoin would have played it. Decided to move full-time in crypto in 2017. I was in US at the time, and Asia felt like being at the forefront of the space. So I moved to Hong Kong, where I was lucky enough to meet Roderick, managing partner of Lemniscap. I'm a principal here. Crypto native investment firm, extremely active since late 2017, early 2018. Pretty agnostic. We look at the blockchain space 360 degrees. We have done layer 1 scalability solution, privacy, a lot of DeFi since 2018, NFT, DAOs tooling, metaverses, different ecosystems. So we're quite active among the most active funds, at least regionally in Asia, fiscally, but we invest globally. And glad to be here.
Thank you, Nicola. So maybe we should start with little 101 question. What are crypto funds? But that's the first part of my question. But then second part is, how do crypto funds compare to traditional funds with respect to attributes such as risk and return? Eddie, what are your views on it?
Oh, crypto fund actually is an interesting topic. I think all of us should actually get involved in that topic. So I'll chip in what I think is sensible. I came from arbitrage background when I was younger. So I should make sure the screen is okay. So I came from arbitrage background, meaning we long something and short something, and then we long certain gamma and vega, which hopefully we can sell them for a higher price, or we can sell something, some certain risk exposure that can mimic a portfolio risk at arbitrage-free prices. So in the crypto world, I came across a lot of crypto funds who claim they're arbitrage-free. Unfortunately, they're not. So that's something that I think as a savvy investor, one should know. So there have been a lot of platforms or strategies or funds that claim they can buy one and sell the other, be honest, if within the same exchange, they play the curve, or among different exchanges, they play different long shorts. They're embedded risk that one should notice. Could be counterparty risk, could be liquidity risk, could be short gamma risk that one should be aware of. So that's one type of crypto fund that I actually want to, at least to, is like what you call it, is like deja vu. 20 years ago when we did arbitrage, we also had this kind of risk, and then later on Lehman happens. The rest is history. In fact, LTCM was bought down because of the same reason. So if history could repeat or may repeat, then I think investors should be aware of it. Once you understand the risk, then the return is quite juicy. You got risk-free 8 to 10%. That's much higher than anything that you can buy steadily from, even with the Fed raising interest rate, treasury at 10-year treasury at 3%, you still earn a lot higher than what you can do with a risk-free market. But that is not risk-free for sure. So I think that's one crypto fund that I want to discuss. I mean, does anyone else want to bring in the title of crypto fund? Otherwise, I probably want to comment about high frequency and trading, and also directional crypto fund as well. Or we can actually, I think it would be good to open the forum. Everyone can
yeah,
join.
Gillian, thank you for sharing. Gillian actually set up 5 funds when you were in Hobby, right? So could you please share a little bit of that, your experience?
Sure.
And yeah.
So basically in the crypto space, if you look at it, actually the larger chunk of assets being managed by VC fund. And after those, you have a lot of passive tracker like Grayscale of the world that basically manage a large chunk of assets. And then even after that, you have the active strategy fund. A portion of those have just been mentioned. And there are also strategies where basically you just pick up the coins on a more fundamental driven basis. So, and then beyond that, only just recently, you probably have, let's say, NFT driven type of fund, more from a collector perspective. And you also have mining fund, whereby basically, I think for anybody as an individual basis, it's hard to get mining exposure efficiently to mine it. So you have mining fund that pulling resources and have special connection, that's to find those operational mining farms. So you have all these various choices which are specialized in a certain area or direction. I think it's very much depending on the user or the investor, what you want, where do you have affinity in terms of certain segments? Do you want to go specific to segments, to a sort of infrastructure fund or DeFi fund or NFT fund or long short fund or fundamental fund, or you just want to have sort of generalist idea, I want a portfolio exposure towards various different things? Because we have seen, I think, over the past 2 years, there has been such a transition, shift of different trends through different timelines. You start with the DeFi summer, and then you go into, let's say, the Bitcoin home run trends, and then followed by animal coins and food coins, and then we have the DeFi 2 and Ethereum killers and Metaverse narrative. So things are always changing. So for trading, I think that has to be something for the professional. You have to entrust for a fund, but for investing in an allocation is something I think a user on user level that you could basically determine what exposure you want to have. And if you have a portfolio and a certain pocket or segment have become very large outside of your portfolio, you haven't still, there's an opportunity to reassess and whether you want to remain the same allocation, you want to sort of rebalance your portfolio or not. That's more so my short take on how to look at crypto funds.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, I personally I'm not very familiar with crypto fund. I focus on equity investment from my angel investment company side as well as my VC fund. So I always found crypto fund very fascinating, but complicated, to be honest. So Nicola, tell me about your Lemniscap fund. Yeah, I'd like to learn more.
Sure. Well, great overview so far, and I love the diversity actually of the panel in a sense that we have been quite focused, I would say, rigorously on the venture side of things. So we started doing venture in crypto pretty much when venture in crypto started existing, right? In late 2017, pretty much everybody had a sort of access. There were a couple of flagship funds that are still around. Were making early investments, but retailers could at that time have access somehow. Then of course the bear market came in, and a lot of structuring, a lot of sanity also came into the market, and the industry as a whole, the VC industry in crypto started to shape up. So that's what we do. We invest in crypto networks and blockchain startups before the launch in case of a crypto network. So whenever we talk about blockchain startups, this is pretty much what you would think on a regular traditional VC investment. You buy equity, and then the exit strategies are the usual ones. In the crypto side of things, so the purely crypto is when you get access to futures tokens, right? So that's the vast majority actually of our investments, and that's where the risk and the reward profile comes in, right? So you're investing in pre-product, you're investing most of the time in pre-launch, you're definitely investing pre-token, right? Pre-launch of the token, pre-G. There is a vesting schedule that comes into play. So there's a time where you actually can receive the token and monetize your investment, and that has been pretty diluted in time. We were looking at something around the 6 months or few months in 2017. Now you will receive your token in 3 or 4 years since your first investment. So that has been spread out, and now there is a lot of time and space in between the investment and the monetization that allows the project actually to express themselves, to achieve critical mass, to gain traction and adoption. So that's what we look at, and that's the vast majority of our investments have been, if basically all investments we do. Obviously, those tokens become liquid, so it comes to mind, and comes handy, I would say, the trading experience. You need to exit at some point. You need to cope with the craziness of the market on the downside and the upside. But I would say that we have the flexibility to enter the market also, and the secondary market if we would like to, if it makes sense. That's not our specialty or our focus, but that's also a chance that we have. Pretty flexible on the liquidity provision, on the yield farming and yield enhancing. But we strongly believe that the opportunities lies on the early stage, so the seed and pre-seed of those crypto networks.
Sure. Before we start the panel, I should have mentioned one disclaimer. We're not here to give any financial advice, and certainly you need to do your own due diligence and do your own research, because crypto's investment are high risk. You could lose everything. So, which I personally find very, all three of you make it sound so easy. And honestly, I mean, from 2017, during the ICO wave, and certainly lots of people have burned their fingers, right, including myself. And because of that, I think I don't feel so confident and comfortable to really invest in the digital asset space. But how do you mitigate the risk? Like Nicola, you mentioned you do all the pre-token, everything before the token was even listed in the exchange, right? How do you mitigate the risk, and how can you find the hidden treasure? I would love to learn.
Sure. Look, this is a very good question, and that's our job, in a sense. So I would say is a combination of things, and I think that if you've been in the space since 2017. I think it's very rare to find somebody that didn't get burnt on the fingers at least a couple of times. So I think it's totally normal, and a lot of things come in quite a bit in the bear market. However, for our experience firsthand, that was a great time to invest. Those are the time when we invested actually in things like the Graph, Algorand, FTX. Those were phenomenal investments for our first fund. So even the bear market is a terrific time to invest in the early stage. To get to your question, there are a couple of things that we definitely look at. First of all, we like to be at the forefront of a narrative. What do I mean with that? We started investing in DeFi in 2018. We were on Dharma, we were on Kava, we were launching Partner of Compounder the day one that launched. In 2018, DeFi Summer was 2 years in the making, right? But coming from traditional finance, coming from broken models of the finance world, we believed a new model needed to be in place, right? So in 2018, that's where we started to invest. And then 2 years later, those narratives played out. NFT, DAOs, different ecosystems like the Ethereum pillars that we mentioned earlier, those are the same exact thing. So you cannot really invest early stage on things that they are successful and they are at the peak of their hype now. You have to do it like years before, when very few people know. And we had Sebastien before. I met him I think 2 or 3 years ago, thanks to you actually, Bowie. And regrettably so, we did not invest back then. But
shame on you, man.
Exactly. Shame on us. And I knew and shook his hand. And anyway, but that's on the wall of shame. And Sandbox wasn't this Sandbox, right? The NFT boom wasn't the NFT narrative that is here, and it's a matter of fact. So what we look at, definitely a narrative that we believe will gain traction. It could be, could have been DeFi and will be DeFi, NFT, Metaverses, Web3, DAO tooling, NFT infrastructure, different ecosystem. We're looking at multiple ecosystem at the time. Then, of course, what they're building. So the project that needs to be a strong value proposition, a strong idea. The model needs to be validated either in another ecosystem or something that we believe will have traction. And first and foremost, the team. The team is the most important things you need to be sold on. They need to be strong. They need to be technical. They need to be, they have to be at least proven as a track record, because now in the crypto space, we see a lot of Web2 developers coming to Web3, but there are also a lot of crypto people that are doing new stuff, right? And you can see how they manage the previous project. So that's very important. And again, there are still a ton of risks, right? You're still, you mitigate, as you said, Bowie, the risks. You don't take them out of the equation completely.
Yeah, so which is why I still like to focus on equity investment instead of digital asset space. I think I feel more comfortable with the LP. Eddie, what do you think?
I do think there is similarity between fundamental investment and crypto investments. I'm just purely commenting on the philosophy behind. It's almost like if you look at the Web2 world, and eventually now we talk about the Web3 world, adoption matter. Whoever adopts the platform will go higher. And the market depends on market moods, So recently, market doesn't like the Web2 as much because of whatever policy or whatever market condition happens, and people are looking at earnings. And a year ago, they were looking at your user adoptions or user acquisitions growth. So people can pay you on growth, or user, or they can actually change their mind and pay you on revenue, and eventually pay you on the most stringent matrix, which is earnings. So I think this is what's happening, and same for the Web3 or the crypto world. So you got to fund tokens and projects, and just like what have been mentioned, that are going to be adopted, and there's a story, the management team, exactly what we have done in the Web2 world in equity investing. So I think it's similar. So fundamental work is possible, but then I do want to highlight that. I actually used to, apart from arbitrage strategy, I've been across multi-asset managers. So and I've been through some, I'm involved in from fundamental investing, into things that trade on, I don't know, like 5 million trade per second, high frequency trading. So there is a lot of commodity behavior embedded in the cryptocurrency price actions. So it's a bit hard when you look at it from a fundamental perspective. You think it is an equity, but when you enjoy the journey or when you experience the journey of the price action, it is more like a commodity. So CTA strategy actually works super well in this regime. I'm not saying that we should all do CTA. CTA works really well generally in trending markets. And if you can run either HFT strategy and or CTA strategies, you actually can capture the price actions and you can actually have decent risk return, and which is relating to the question that you posed. How do you get good risk return? Apart from fundamental, you get quant strategy that can work. And I honestly think none of them actually work perfectly. So if you can have a diversified strategy, this is at least what we think. A fund of funds where hopefully you can diversify your strategy into different beta or your different risk driver. So you have CTA and HFT. HFT generally very market neutral. CTA generally trend following, meaning that you are covering your tail. So especially when market crash. So when market crash, you actually have a long gamma. You could be making money as a protection. And then you have arbitrage strategy generally will crash when market is crashing. So if you look at LTCM again, or even most of the mean reversion strategy back in 2008, same thing in the arbitrage world, the like for crypto. So if you have a portfolio of those, and then you have a vol strategy, a long vol strategy, that come along with the liquid staking and or yield farming, your portfolio should be much better than traditional fund of funds, hedge fund fund of funds portfolio, I should say, in terms of risk reward. I think that's the way that as an institutional investors who want to deploy a lot of money, who want to earn true risk alpha return, who would actually want to do that. You don't want to just go in a project and say, "Man, I know this guy, I know this project. I'm in front of everyone. I'm going to be taking tokens before you do, and then I'm going to run away before you do." Those are more cowboy style that happens in stock markets, in pink sheet, and even Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio will be doing. Those are great. I mean, you still make money, but it's not easy, and it's not as scalable. So I think as a fund manager, you want to have a forward strategy that truly gives you better risk-adjusted return.
Sure, thank you for sharing. Gillian, I
wanted
to hear from you.
I want to add on some bigger picture. Basically, if you look at crypto space, the entire market cap of all crypto together is $2 trillion. And it's actually much smaller than one single stock, be it Apple or Microsoft. So actually within the space, there is still so much going on, innovation, things that you could do, tokenization of traditional assets or fractionalized ownership. So there are a lot that can happen. And for sure, the market cap itself would grow. So I would say, of course, there are risks, particularly a lot around that say, indeed, if you take a single bet against something, or you just followed on some otherwise from XYZ influencer, you might run into something you don't really, that you would regret in the end. But as with anything, be it traditional equity investing or crypto investing, there is always a degree of either you trust a professional to do it for you, or you basically do your homework, right? So you dig deeper, you do the research. If you want to do NFTs, because the earlier panel is a lot about Metaverse and NFTs, you need to know to participate in the community. You need to know like what it means by an IP, and if IP ownership changes, is it positive or negative to this project or collection that you own. And if you don't really have the time to do a lot of this digging, you trust a third party to manage that for you, right? And in terms of, like, say, evaluating early stage projects, because within Mulana, our capacity is also looking at early seed, pre-seed stage projects. And a lot is about your own philosophy and narrative. Like, what do you believe that is important in the next 10 years for crypto space? So what do we think? Multi-chain is here to stay. and scalability is an issue, even if some of the alternative layer ones have outrage and downtime when there is a popular NFT mint. So layer 2 is also something that we like. So, and within that space, then you start to dig into which are the teams that have the relevant experience and they want basically to tackle this great problem statement. And then there is, let's say, there is so much more that this, like the great problem statement is basically one aspect of the story. You can also have like a metaverse that is utilizing AI, that's utilizing VR, give you a better in-metaverse experience. There's all sorts of things that people can do and can address. Of course, there's a limit on, let's say, a scope of how high the potential this project might have if it succeeds. And then there is a suitability or the fit, whether this team is the right team that was doing that right thing. And then even if you have a perfect analysis, let's put that way, and you think this will be the team to tackle the right problem, when you go to the market and we will go through this whole funding the initial sponsor of the community user, let's say user base, the initial liquidity bootstrapping, there's too many elements coming in, and sometimes even who is behind what project can even come into play that determines the speed of your success. And if you run faster, you probably gain more, let's say, first mover advantage. So there is a lot for actually any even funder who contemplate and come to the space to think of in the first place. And that's where basically what we do here is we want to find like-minded people who focus on especially a real, let's say, addressable issue within the space, and aims to bring a lot more users outside of crypto, or let's say onboard Web2 people into Web3. You reduce the friction, improve the security. So there are so many, there's so many things or tool sets that still can be built in much better way. For instance, use a MetaMask. You have to add a chain, you have to add a token contract before you see your token. For a lot of normal people, that's just like a nightmare because you don't know where your assets is, you get scared. But there's things that's being built currently that will resolve and improve a lot with those aspects. And also like reducing the phishing, let's say, attack that you would with your own high value NFT, and that will be a very bad experience for people just lost their NFT by clicking some wrong site, right? So there are things built that reduce the chances of those. So there are a lot of amazing things and opportunity that's still out there, be either you come in as an equity investor or you come in as a SAFT token investor. There is still, let's say, a lot of opportunities what we see.
Yeah, I agree. I know there are lots of opportunities, but which is why I have the privilege to organize events and to certain topic that I want to hear and ask specific questions from the specialists, the experts like you all three. So my question is, what are the when investing in projects, right? What are the signs and indicators that you look for that tells it's worth it? That's my first question. And second, can you share 2 or 3 projects that are worth for our audience to look for? Again, it's not financial advice. You have to do your own due diligence and do your own research, but I would like to pick over your brain. Eddie, what can you share?
I'm not sure if I can share actual project, to be honest. Again, I mean, I think the other two, I mean, speaker can probably comment on project as you like, or sign to look for. As a managers who, what's the right way to put it? Who I truly care about risk-adjusted return. I mean, regardless of whether it's stocks or bonds portfolio or multi-asset portfolio or even a crypto portfolio, sign that I look for. Usually we call it hidden risk. Actually, I know it sounds really funny that we talk about risk rather than return, but the best investment manager I always think is the one who understands risk before thinking about returns. So mentions sign to look for is actually, we say you have to know what you don't know. The unknown. The unknown is always what you have to ask yourself, and it's hard because you don't know what you don't know. So generally we have committee, that's why, and we have risk managers who try to understand hosts. I mentioned earlier arbitrage strategy or you generating strategies. It's simple if things go well, but it's not simple when things don't go well, and that's where counterparty risk has to be. So we actually spend a lot of time doing due diligence on our counterparts. And then we have to pull out, we have to check the reserve, and then things, those are the signs that could go wrong. For equity investment, I think I mentioned earlier already, adoption is key. So even for us, when we build a platform, or when we invest into a platform, the first thing we do is actually, are you resolving issues, and are those issues going to be short-term issues where you see some of the layer 2 chain actually very obvious that what the solution they tell you is cool, but it's going to be, but their solution is going to be replaced by another solutions. So who's going to be there to adopt? Or you're going to be more expensive or less efficient. So for us, adoption is key. And I'm sensing that, at least I think we should talk about the future rather than the past for projects. For the futures or the second generations of NFT projects, second generations of crypto project, it have to be more than just a virtual thing where you enjoy your life, your second life on the website or in a computer or in a game environment. It has to be something that transforms into some real values. And online, offline, or we call it OMO, online merge offline experience, is something that we care about truly, because within India, who will have sustainable values in tokens, or the token that will carry sustainable value has to be somehow related to the real life. It doesn't have to be, but the best one usually will have some benefit to you. And we start to see that in even, I think in some of the major NFT projects, it's like a memberships, and the membership allow you to meet real people on a real boat. I mean, so that's how you get community together to make sure adoption is there. And a lot of the time people miss that. They thought, actually, it's hard if there are good people behind, and if the celebrity, and then it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool for a while. The true values, intrinsic value that comes on, has to be somehow related to real life. That's how I think about it. And those are undervalued.
Thank you for sharing. Sure, Nicola.
Yes, sure. Well, would be tremendously hard to pick the favorites. We have been extremely active. Only the last fund has more than 90 active investment. Well, not a secret, but two that we're pretty excited about it, that we looked at since the very early beginning, and maybe I can share them to give you an idea of the journey that we try to embark on. Well, one is Euler or Euler, depending on the pronunciation, is a novel way of pricing the interest rate on the lending market, and using control theory. We knew the guys, since he was in his PhD in school, and we told them we should do it. We pre-funded, and so we've done the earliest round basically, and then was picked up by Paradigm for the Series A, and now is doing following rounds, and will launch soon. So this is an example of how early we try to be, how deep we go to the founders, and how close we are to them, and how good they eventually happen to be. And we'll launch soon. So pretty excited about that. Other project on portfolio, which we doubled down all the way. We have done the previous round, Series A, and the latest one is Axelar, basically building a cross-chain fabric. And we knew the team super early on because we knew Algorand, and that's a sort of like spin-off of the team from MIT. Super technical, very ambitious, but we understood the potential right away, right? And now recently launched, we launched the token imminently. So those are the sort of like things that we like to look at, fairly technical, but also innovative. Like there is a risk of would they work, obviously, but if they work big time, right? And it's not like a punt or random team. These are very highly technical skilled team that they're building something that you need that sort of skill set to make it. And I can tell you in terms of ecosystem what we're looking at, because that's quite a bit of projects building on them, and quite a little bit of traction. So we always looked quite deeply on the Near and Aurora ecosystem. We have done the pillars of both of them. We are in Aurora. We looked at quite a bit on Harweave. That's a very, I would say, robust and skilled ecosystem, in a sense that it feels like the Ethereum of 2016, 16 and 17. The early developers building on that, very intellectual somehow. We like Starkware and Starknet recently, but who doesn't? So as somebody in the panel already mentioned, the layer 2 and the scalability solution, these are something we're seriously looking at and considering, and we want to have a strong footprint. We tend to look at the pillars and the infrastructural plays on those new ecosystem. So lending markets, AMMs, oracles, and all that sort of stuff. So we are leading AMM on Starkware now. We led a Oracle on Solana. We led an Oracle and smart contract platform on our Weave. So we try to be as infrastructural as possible on each ecosystem we invest on.
Thank you. And Gillian, any secret sauce? Picking projects?
Secret sauce.
Yeah.
I would say probably it starts with that you also want to screen out those that you really think there's red flags, right? I think typically when we look at a new deal come onto the table is that we want to know whether the funding team are really committed to do what they want to do. There are token vestings for the team, and if they put that basically similar to the investors and not much longer, only like within 2 years, that's already feel like a doubt, because if you exited within 2 years and is the project going to run autopilot or what? So there is a degree of that. And again, looking at the funding team, which is the key driver behind everything else, is that have they funded other ventures and how long did they last in the venture? Did they really try their last means to make it a success, or every year there's something new, right? There are various things that can act as, let's say, something that you could discuss with them at length. And then once, let's say, in terms of committing to the project that we have so far invested, I wouldn't really share the names, but I can talk about the, let's say, the direction. For instance, we did invest into 2 African projects. One is an exchange, one is a GameFi, let's say, a guild relevant venture. Basically, you have seen in Southeast Asia how large the uptake is with gaming and GameFi, but it didn't really happen on the same scale within Africa because there are certain other local characteristic that didn't make it easy to take off. There needs to be fiat off-ramp, there needs to be let's say good tutorials teaching them how to do it. There's a lot of factor came into play, but there were good teams who were trying to resolve it. And also particularly within that continent, you have a large number of population that if you think about decentralization community, that everybody's time and effort is going to count in this decentralized governance. That's whereby the easy, let's say, place where, let's say, crypto should take off. Likewise, in India, we also have invested into Indian projects as well. And in the other area, we also invested into indeed the layer 2 solutions where, let's say, we actually invested into multiple, but let's say some will come from, let's say, a wallet perspective, that it will offer an integrated wallet that you can support all the layer 1 chains and layer 2 chains. Of course, they have 2 behind the scene, but you don't see that, right? In your own wallet, you are able to do both layer 1 transaction, layer 2 transaction, and you support your NFTs. So it will reduce a lot of your own friction in terms of using or spreading your asset across different places. And there are ones that are focusing more on, let's say, creating this ecosystem on the second layer, whereby the transaction happen with a less gas fee and much easier to conduct swaps and other financial transactions. So these are the things that we feel that in the long run that will be helpful for the space.
Sure, thank you. Moving on, I think I'd like to talk about the regulatory landscape. So in Hong Kong, one of the digital asset company, Bao Capital, just received approval from Hong Kong SFC to manage funds with 100% virtual assets. So this news just came last week. To me, I think one of the key challenges is the regulatory clarity for the digital asset space. What are your views on it, Eddie? Since you are a listed company, so and also licensed, right? So what are your views on it?
Well, we think of it from the opposite angle, actually. So let me explain a little bit. It's almost like so the crypto person. A crypto native person will look at it and say, I need to get licensed. So from our point of view, we look at it as like we already have license and we're adding a new product. So at Arta, we have type 1, 2, 4, 6, and 9 SFC licenses. We also have Hong Kong Exchange participant right. So we're basically exchange participant, and we also have different exchange. At different exchange, we have different participant right as well. And then we have insurance brokerage license, we have trustee license, we have money lending licenses. So we just have lots of licenses, I guess. that's one thing. And meaning, if we're going to do one more product, if we're going to venture into a new space like cryptos or so-called virtual asset they call, then we will have to notify SFC, or we'll have to work with SFC to express our interest and get the acknowledgement, basically endorsement. And that's something that also Hobby had done for the Type 9. So from our point of view, regulatory requirement is unneeded, whether we trade variance swaps. So when I was younger, I think actually, if we remember back in those days, I think pre-08, the crazy thing was like conditional variance swaps, where you have a S&P index, and then you can give you a payout based on the volatility of the S&P, and then of the difference of the volatility between what you pay and versus what you get, and then it's a square function. It's a crazy thing, and it's conditional based on barrier. These are complex products, and now crypto is considered an entire complex products. That's how we see it, basically. And so it has to be regulated. One should be regulated. We are already regulated. We're adding a product that SFC want to regulate, and we are here to work with SFC and basically all the regulators to make sure that we are also regulated and investing interests are protected. I think people always misunderstood, or they kind of have a stigma with regulations. It's almost like your parents don't let you to go out to play football or something, or you're stealing candy and your parents don't like it. Regulation is good in a way that it makes sure investor protection are done. That's absolutely important. Make sure fair disclosure are made, and make sure that basically you have proper process to monitor your internal staff, to basically say what you do and we do what you say. I think as simple as that. So that's our framework. And if it's some people may be interested in asset management only, we think also the brokerage business is extremely interesting. And I think we will probably do some work around it, but it's a listed company, so I can't talk too much about exactly what we do. But that's basically our stand.
Sure. And Gillian?
Yeah, regulation is a big topic we have been dealing with for years. So in Hong Kong, you have now so far only one crypto exchange license being issued. And then there is around 5 by this date, asset management license issued that can manage 100% crypto asset fund. We were one of the early ones in terms of asset management side to get the license from Hobby Asset Management. It is indeed a journey whereby there was never a no on what you want to do. You just have to make the proposal and then bring them along with you every step of the way to convince them the way you're doing it have been properly addressed on the risks associated with that, especially for the investor. And you have to make sure that the investors have the knowledge and are sophisticated enough to understand crypto and wants to commit investment into it. So far, of course, there's no retail ever being mentioned. It's still a no-no, cannot touch retail. But in the other aspects, because it's the whole space is still relatively new, and within the regulator themselves, let's say, the team also changes, right? You have team who have learned how to look at the space, and then they go out and fund their own business, and they have new teams take over. You basically have to continuously try to sort of convince and bring them along with your story. And whether, let's say, it is sometimes people may see it as a burden and completely move away to a place, be it Dubai or somewhere else, to start all anew again. Or some other times you could basically argue with, let's say, it's a safety standard, or let's say a strong compliant country where we are based in that may, let's say, help you with your brand value in terms of approaching the client at large who don't yet know so much about the details within the space. So I think it's about how you perceive it. But in general, I would say Hong Kong and Singapore similarly, it's still between, let's say, where the US is and where China is. So we still have the space and room to develop and innovate. It's just that you have to respect some of those rules in place as well.
Absolutely. And Nicola, any comments from you?
Cool. Well, I smiled because in actually 2009 or 2010, we used to make a ton of money on barn swap. It was quite easy, actually. We're selling and hedging on the other side and doing dispersion trades.
I have a feeling that I have traded with you. Anyway,
I was in US. I
Yeah.
was in US, but when you said complex product barn swap, smile on my face.
I was trading for UBS in New York as well instead.
Yeah.
So I think we may have traded. But back then, those were crazy stuff. I remember we kind of mark the curve sometimes. So I mean, crypto is relatively easy. Yeah.
Fun
anyway,
times, fun times. Yeah, very fun times. And you brought me back to history, basically. And look, in terms of the regulatory, especially local regulatory, I'm definitely not the right kind of guy to add. Our fund is offshore, and making investment from an entity offshore. The investment manager is offshore. So basically, we're physically here in Hong Kong, but there is pretty much nothing compared to the fund. What I can tell about the regulatory aspect on the project that we see is that there is a lot of more awareness, that's for sure. Now deals are structured very well, docs are drafted very well. There is a fair assessment of the risk. There are legal firms that are working on it. And it feels like the teams are way more conscious of the risk that could be, and they'll try to mitigate that. I think the regulatory risks are a spectrum. So I don't think that you see a team launching a crypto networks completely mitigating 100% of the risk. And we have seen so many of different models. DAOs obviously are coming in the way. We have seen teams like decomposing the code base and selling as NFTs, and only if those buyers of NFT could recompose the NFTs and the code base, the product would launch. So basically abstracting completely the responsibility of the team to launch the crypto network. So that probably was one of the extremes that we have seen. It's a portfolio company. So what I can definitely tell is that us as fund managers, we endorse regulation. We were happy to see it. I think it will just bring more capital, more awareness, and more interest from institutional investors. But on the local Hong Kong license thing, that I cannot add any more interesting color.
Sure, no problem. Hey,
I just want to mention that for a CFI type of, if you look at a portfolio, that you invest different things right across the board. For CFI, like centralized exchanges, service providers, regulation is already there, or it has to come, and it's just not a matter of yes or no, but a win, right? So people are trying to get these relevant licenses. But for DeFi and for NFT or DAO related projects, there's a lot of places, there's no framework. Even within the recent SFC paper, they've excluded this from the scope of their regulatory oversight, right? So they don't know yet how to regulate. So, but again, once you become really large, you're the Uniswaps, right? You are the Terras of the world. And then there things will come to you. So there are a lot of projects they will choose, I do it first, and they'll figure out regulation later. And there are ones, I think, the rare success where they'll go to get a license first. A lot of those are relevant to the CFI players and not so much on the DeFi and on the NFT related.
Sure. On that, I want to make a quick comment. I think it's yes or no. I mean, that's what hopefully make it interesting in this world where we have contra opinions. I think what I'm not big. I'm not just quoting. I'm quoting basically someone who public figure who said this, and I think the two statements that should make sense when one consider about regulations. One is basically the technology development should basically at least stay within the framework of social interest. So social interest go first. So if a DAO is there to raise money to act like an insurance company, and then there is certain elements of social interest. That's why regulation may be needed, or regulation was needed in the DeFi world. It's needed in the DeFi world for insurance company. And the second statement is actually regulation could be technology neutral, because technology in itself, if the substance over form, we always say, if the substance of certain actions is like an investment, or it's like an insurance company, or it's like a trading company, it doesn't matter what technology anymore. It's the ultimate consequence and the outcomes that matters. So I think it's a matter of time to this. And with that, I do want to say this year is a big year, at least for us as well, where we are talking to a lot of major institutions, and they are excited about DeFi. they're excited about to accept the experience of DeFi. They're also as equally excited about the fact that there could be options where you can stay regulatory safe or investor protection safe, meaning you get the best of CeFi, and then you also get the best of DeFi. So we call it, I call it a name called hybrid finance, hi-fi. It's like hi-fi. When the old days when you have music, So I think the best of both is needed rather than one-sided with just DeFi or one-sided with just CeFi. CeFi is too old for sure. DeFi could be a little bit too risky for sure. And maybe
yeah. I got two last questions for the panelists today. One, a few days ago, the man who paid 2.9 million USD for one NFT of Jack Dorsey's first tweet set to lose almost the entire amount of money. Are we at the end of the NFT wave? Is that fading? That's my first question. And my last question is, could you please give one takeaway for our audience today? So why don't we start with Gillian?
I don't think this is the end of the NFT wave. Actually, there's still a lot more happening, especially traditional brands are now started to wanting to go into Metaverse and sort of monetize the brand value of NFTs. And you have all the art and collectible market is still going strong. And even with the PFP space, there's still projects like Moonbirds cashing very quickly after just launched. I think what happens that is about whether this project have a community, and where this community is really actively trusting the philosophy and the future of this project. But if you have this one line of Twitter out of a particular Jack or somebody else, and then how, like, who else is the community that will continue to maintain or uphold this value? It's very hard to argue. And that's to take away for the audience. I think there might still people who actually don't really know what blockchain does. I would always recommend people to sort of go behind a bit deeper into whether this technology is really tackling some issues, let's say at large within the financial system. And just from practically where I have experience of, let's say, losing my Dutch bank account because I have to fly personally back to resolve some issues which I can't in the time frame, and I just close it, versus I can control my own finance and transfer my money to anybody in the world at any time. It's really something that will make you think whether you want to be part of it or not.
Thank you, Gillian. Nicola?
Absolutely. Well, I think it was impossible to believe or conceive sustainability that that we have seen on NFTs, or in terms of traction, interest, and hype, honestly, that we have seen. So it's pretty obvious that a cycle would have formed. I'm not sure where exactly we are on the curve, on the exact point of the curve of the cycle, but we still see a lot of interest, especially from the tooling, especially from the infrastructure that will help connect metaverses and NFTs. I don't think that the wave is over, in a sense, and even if it will be over on the hype part, I think that it was strong enough to attract talents that will be building for the long term. So I would say that probably DeFi now is even more on the downtrend, in a sense, right? And probably DeFi needs a little bit more of sustainability on their model, on their token launches, on their on the way they go about inclusion of the community and the liquidity.
And one takeaway for the audience today, Nicola?
One takeaway for the audience. I think once you are for the long term, every other downtrend is an opportunity, and stick with the best, because we're still extremely early and the best are here to stay. And I think 2021 was the year where we saw a lot of Web2 developers coming to Web3, a lot of newcomers from the NFT world and Metaverse, and a lot of new, solid, robust, genuine ecosystem flourishing. Avalanche, Solana, Near, and Arweave, and so on and so forth. So those are strong community that will not go anywhere.
Thank you. And Eddie?
My one is quick. I
Mm-hmm.
think that I talk about the NFT 2.0, the online merge offline experience. I think that's where the intrinsic value will come from. So I think it's like you die and then you reincarnate again, right? So the old model may be dying despite it hasn't been around for too long, but the reincarnation is more exciting to me, I think, and it's meaning the bull market is yet to come. And to take away is actually, I think there are around 2 trillion of crypto asset around. I mean, it fluctuates so much, so it's hard to tell whether it's 2 or 1.5 or not. But the world has about $250 trillion of stocks and bonds. So crypto asset is still a small fraction of the global bond market and or security market. I think it's a matter of time. But that journey can go on for a long time. But it's a matter of time that a lot of securities will become on blockchain available or crypto available. So I'm extremely optimistic in this space.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Nicola, Gillian, and Eddie. And that's the end of our session for today. And thank you, everybody, for joining. My next mega conference that I'm organizing is called the Game On 2021, which is in partnership with Invest Hong Kong. And now the festival has been postponed to beginning of September. So stay tuned for more information. The Game On Summit is scheduled on September 8 and 9, and it's going to be, I guess, full of insightful panel discussion, keynote, and we do have a virtual party at the Sandbox Metaverse on day 2. So, and that's the end of our event today, and thank you very much for joining.
Our pleasure. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you for having us. Take care.
Thank you.